we're going to jump into the things that happened. The first thing that the new U.S. government, in the new U.S. government, people talked about was a coin. Didn't happen right away. There's a lot of stuff early. There was a pattern made, the 1783 Nova Constellatio patterns. I'll say everything that you can read because I'm just making it easy for myself that way. Nova Constellatio is the Latin phrase for new constellation. The new constellation was our new country. And then there's the stars on the reverse. They represent the colonies. Sylvester Crosby wrote in his book in I believe it's 1876, but maybe, Scott, do you remember what year that book is? Somewhere there. Something like that. He wrote that these were the first patterns for coinage of the United States. They were intended to be produced at the proposed North American Mint operated by the government. Robert Morris, the assistant financier of the Confederation, proposed these pieces. He was pro a new decimal system. They were designed by Benjamin Dudley. There would have been 1,000, a 500, and a 100, we thought. In Europe in 1977, they found a 5. That's kind of weird, that we would. So you had the 1,000 on the top, 500, the 100, and the 5. Notice the 3 dots preceding the 5 to ensure that they didn't confuse it with 50 or 500. And so this was a pattern piece. These are unique. There's a couple examples around of them in the Smithsonian. They're nothing that we are collecting. I'm going to jump a few years ahead. In 1758, in England, in Birmingham, England, the Nova Constellatio coppers were struck. These were a private venture. So these coins were made to make money. You could make them cheaper than the cent, get them over to the new, not colonies anymore, the new country, the U.S., get them into circulation, and essentially you'd make money. You could pass them for less than they cost to make. So they were copied from the patterns we just saw. They got rid of the decimal. They were now trading at the cent value. They replaced the decimal with a U.S. There's a large and small U.S. and a standard, simple to read. And on the far right, you can see the script, more of a cursive U.S., much more difficult to read. 1785, also, there was the Immuno-Columbia coinage, which kept the all-seeing eye from the Nova Constellatio reverse, replaced the Libertas Justice with the Liberty Cap and Scale. The Liberty Cap and Scale, which represents liberty and justice. There were 2 common reverses, the all-seeing eye reverse and a King George III reverse. Immuno-Columbia refers to America being immune to problems in distant Europe. We are on our own. We don't have to deal with their problems. There were other Immuno-Columbia designs and smaller patterns. These pretty much are patterned coins. There were not very many of these produced. Jumping to coinage of the states. The states that issued coinage, both authorized and some not authorized, but had their names on it, were Vermont, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey. You can see the map of the original colonies and the original states. Vermont, which was not one of the states, it was a republic. It was not a state until 1791. It authorized coppers on June 15th of 1785. They were dated 1785 to 1788. There's 39 different varieties. The coiner was Reuben Harmer of Rupert, Vermont. And the original die sinker was Colonel William Coley. There were other die sinkers later on, but he did the original dies. I don't know how many of the 39 varieties he did compared to the next. The bottom left is a landscape. They're the most popular, desirable, collectible ones, but everybody wants to get a couple different the major varieties. The top right is a baby head. We have a landscape and a baby head. The bottom right, can't remember there. It's a common name. It's just whatever that says. I can't remember what that is. The Vermont October, whatever that is. I can't read it across on that. October 20th of 1785, a partnership was granted the right to establish a mint under the direction of the General Assembly of Connecticut. They were authorized to coin no more than 10,000 pounds, or no more than equal to 10,000 British pounds in value. They had Actori connected, which means the authority of Congress. They're all dated between 1785 and 1788. Abel Buell is a probable die sinker. He's a common die sinker you'll find in colonials. He did a lot of popular stuff. There's 38 varieties in the Red Book. If you move into my Whitman book up here, Colonial and Early American Coins, there are pages and pages of it, many more than 38 varieties. And you'll find that with a lot of these colonials that you go into the specialty books and there's just dizzying pages of it to study. Massachusetts, October 17th of 1786, there was an act for establishing a mint for the coinage of gold, silver, and copper was passed. These were the first coins to bear cent and half-cent denominations stamped onto them. They're dated 1787 and 1788. Most of these dies were done by Joseph Callender. New York never authorized a state coinage. There were various unauthorized copper pieces issued. They were primarily done by the two different mints of Machen Mills in Newburgh and John Bailey and Ephraim Brasher in New York City. They're dated from 1786 to 1788. Now, I did not bring up a picture of a Brasher de Bloom, the very famous, everybody wants one, few $1,000,000 you could have one. They were not a circulating coin. I did not think they were really part of this presentation. I was thinking of coins that were meant to be circulated, even if they were a pattern. They were things that were going to be seen by the people. And the gold Brasher de Blooms were never intended to be a circulated piece. There are several patterns and imitations of George III halfpence made for circulations. Machen Mills went on to a large, successful George III counterfeit pieces with dates from pre-Revolutionary War, a large date period, because it made financial sense to circulate those. They could make them, again, cheaper than it cost. They were cheaper than they could pass them. So there are lots of George III halfpence out there. Here's more examples of New York coppers. Anova Borak we can see an example of in the tray. George Clinton on the right, which carries the same reverse as the New York. This one, the bottom right, second from the right, that's the New York motto, but whatever, I can't think of the correct term right now. So that reverse is on a lot of different tokens. Eagle with shield has it. The George Clinton above has it. The Indian with the New York is very common. The bottom left, Indian with eagle on globe. There is what we'd like to think is a Bolin copy. Bullens were done in the 1860s copies. I wish it was an original, but I'd be happy if it's a Bullen, but I'm not enough of an expert to know that for sure on the tray. But they're fun, these are fun pieces, neat history to collect. I collected most of these 20 years ago. It was another one of the rabbit holes. New Jersey, June 1st of 1786, their General Assembly granted authority to Thomas Godsby, Alban Cox, and Walter Mould to coin 3 million coppers, weighing 6 pennyweight and 6 grains apiece. They had to pay the state 10% of all the coins they minted. They're dated between 1786 and 1788. There are, I don't know how many varieties, but a lot. We have 5 varieties we can see. The serpent head, which is always a popular one. You have the head facing left, the head facing right. You have a narrow shield. You have all kinds of varieties of these. To get 3 million coppers, they were making these out of, you were talking about, we had a talk during table topics about gun money. These things were made out of everything they could find. Same thing, salvage metal. They were overstriking other coins. And then again, some of these coins later on were overstruck onto Fujios, which are neat to find. I'd like to find a nice Fujio overstrike. Private tokens. I don't know how much these are really circulating. I'm not sure if I believe it all. The North American token, struck in Dublin, dated 1781. They say it was common near the Canadian border. I don't think there were that many of these that were actually here. They're very popular with collectors. I went after it for the ship when I did the ship thing. Same with the Talbot Alban Lee on the bottom right. The bar copper circulating in New York, 1785. They don't know much about. It has the exact same die as a button from the Revolutionary War, which is why they say it was likely produced in England. There were a lot of button manufacturers there and other die sinkers there. And lots of varieties look like that. They're in high grade, so I don't think that they were heavily circulated ever. And again, I think this is a lot of the things that go into the Red Book that as you research, they're associated to the U.S., so they get thrown into colonial stuff, but I don't know how much. I think they were speculation pieces that maybe didn't circulate here too much. The 1787 Fujio. This is the first coin issued by the United States. April 21st, it was ordered to be done. The U.S. Board of Treasury authorized a contract of 300 tons of these things. 300 tons of 1-cent coins. That's a lot of coins. There are a lot of overstrikes of these made on other coins. Again, back to that gunmetal. Anything they could salvage to create the copper, they were doing. The coin legends are credited to Benjamin Franklin. Fujio meaning time flies. The circle of 13 linked rings representing the colonies. This was also the same reverse that was on the continental currency piece that never was really intended for circulation. It was made as a pattern, whereas these actually did go into circulation. That's why I didn't put a die of the continental currencies in here, a large silver piece. The common varieties are club rays on the top. You can see from the sun the large baseball bat looking ones. I think they look more like for a club. And on the bottom one, the pointed rays, where they're all individual beams out. They were minted at several locations, including New York and New Haven, Connecticut. Abel Buell engraved these dies, and they were the first widely circulating coin of the U.S. government. So the simple resources I used were the Whitman book that I've used a lot of, my old Walter Breen's book, and the Red Book.